Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Your Financial Future, Investment and Superannuation Strategies Across the Decades. My name is Nicole Walker, and I'm the Senior Manager, Alumni Engagement, and as always, it's my pleasure to be your host today. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are meeting and pay my respects to elders past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Today's session is being recorded and a stenographer is providing live captions. To access these, please click on the link posted in the chat. Our session today is designed for alumni at every stage of life, whether you're just starting out in your career, buying your first home, raising a family, or planning for comfortable retirement. Over the next hour, you'll gain practical, credible insights on how your financial goals and strategies evolve over time and how to make confident decisions around saving, investing, superannuation, and managing risk. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Professor Robert Bianchi, a leading authority on personal finance, superannuation, and asset management. He is the director of Griffith Centre for Personal Finance and Superannuation, and has advised organisations such as the CSIRO, the Australian Research Council, the Asian Development Bank, and brings extensive real-world experience from senior investment roles at QTC and H3 Global Advisors. Rob is also the founder of Griffith's Student Managed Investment Fund, mentoring the next generation of financial professionals, and his insights have featured widely in a number of financial media outlets. I'm going to bring Rob on screen now. Welcome, Rob.
Hello, Nicole, and hello, everyone online.
Awesome. All right, Rob, I'm going to hand the screen over to you now, and I'll be back later to help with the Q&A.
Nicole, thank you very much. Let me upload the slides, and we will get started. Okay, can I confirm that everyone can see those slides clearly?
Yeah, all good.
So. Wonderful, thank you very much. Well, before we begin, Griffith acknowledges the people who are the traditional custodians of the land. We pay respect to the elders past and present and extend all that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to this session. We only have 35 minutes. And so we're not going to be able to cover every single thing, but at the very beginning, I'd just like to declare that this is not financial advice, this is financial education. And so you've got to consider your individual preferences and unique circumstances before you make any form of financial decisions. And I would encourage you to seek professional financial advice before making important financial decisions. If you are here online and you are experiencing financial hardship right now, I have the contact details of 2 organisations that you can talk to today for free if you are experiencing financial hardship. So there's the Financial Counselling Australia and their website at the bottom of the screen, and also the National Debt Helpline for you to contact if you are experiencing financial hardship. Well, welcome everyone to this presentation. And so before we talk about individual financial strategies later on, I thought I would first begin by introducing to you some life and finance frameworks. And the purpose of the next couple of slides is for you to ask yourself, where do I sit in this framework? And by positioning yourself in this framework, it allows you to understand where you're at in your life cycle or in your stages of life. So the first one I want to introduce to you is, it's not a finance framework, but just a demographic framework. And so everyone here today sits somewhere along this demographic spectrum. If we start on the left-hand side, if you're age 80 plus, you are referred to as the builder generation or the silent generation. If you are aged between 61 and 79 roughly, you're a baby boomer. If you're aged between 46 and 60, that's me, you are a Gen Xer. If you are between the ages of 31 and 45, you are referred to as a millennial or a Gen Y. If you are aged between 16 to 30, you're a Gen Z, and we won't go through the others because others aren't earning an income. And so depending on where you are in this demographic spectrum, you are going to have different earnings and wealth positions. And so that's really important to understand, that everyone in the demographic spectrum are at different stages of their life, and their finances are different as well. The second framework I want to introduce to you is this framework here, and that is human capital versus investment capital. So human capital is your capacity to earn a living and to earn an income, and that's referred to as human capital, and your ability to generate those earnings for the skills that you have. Investment capital is essentially the amount of wealth or savings that you've accumulated in your lifetime. And so what we can think about is, where do you sit on a spectrum of human capital and investment capital? And so on the left-hand side, we have a young individual who's working at the fruit and veggie shop. And essentially, young individuals, and if you're one of them, you have high levels of human capital, and you generally tend to have very low levels of wealth or low levels of investment capital. You're about to start your journey in producing earnings and income for yourself. And so the goal here is to eventually save those earnings, and that those savings are referred to as investment capital or savings. As you progress through life, you might be in the middle part of your life, where you've been in the workforce for a period of time already. So you might have a moderate amount of human capital left, which is between now and when you retire. So you might be halfway through your career. And at this point in time, hopefully you have accumulated some level of savings, and therefore you would have some moderate levels of investment capital. Then on the right-hand side, when you reach retirement and you're a retiree, you will have, you're not in the workforce anymore, or you may not be able to work any longer due to health or physical reasons. And so you'll have low or zero human capital left, and hopefully you'll have a high amount of investment capital or wealth, whereby you will tap on that wealth to be able to pay for your day-to-day, week-to-week living expenses. So the question that I want to ask you is, where do you see yourself in this framework? Are you on the left-hand side? Are you in the middle? Or are you on the right-hand side of this human capital, investment capital spectrum? The third framework that I want to introduce to you is what's referred to as the life cycle hypothesis. And so this is a very simple diagram to explain the average life. And what's really important here is that we're talking in general terms. We're not talking about specifics here. And so the life cycle diagram really has two lines here. We have a horizontal line, which starts on the left-hand side and goes to the right-hand side, and that's your consumption line. So what that tells you is whether you're young or whether you're old, you have a certain level of expenses or consumption. It generally tends to be roughly stable, and it might go up just slightly over time, and that's your consumption line, which is that straight line. Superimposed on that straight line is that curved line that you can see, and that is your income curve. And so you have no income between the ages of, say, 0 to 20. You're a child, then you enter the workforce at 20. If you can look at your income curve, you can see there that from 0 to 20, it's basically saying that your consumption is higher than your ability to earn an income. You're a child, you're a teenager, you're not working, you might be studying, you've got a student loan, and therefore you have a negative position in terms of your level of income to consumption. Then you reach 20, you enter the workforce, you start earning an income, and all of a sudden you're able to save some of that income. And so that's that savings hump that you see in the graph here. You work to 65. This shows roughly, the average person will retire roughly at 65. And at 65, you exit the workforce, you're no longer earning an income, and therefore your consumption is greater than your income, and therefore you rely on your wealth to pay for your expenses in your retirement years. So once again, in this framework, we want to ask the question, where do you sit in this framework? Are you on the left-hand side? Are you somewhere in the middle? Or are you retired and are you sitting somewhere on the right-hand side? And so by framing these three frameworks to you, it allows you to understand where you fit in your phase of your life. So, given that we've introduced these frameworks, we're now going to introduce to you the core strategy to financial independence. Once again, this is very general. It doesn't suit every single person, but this is the general strategy for people to think about. And then we'll go through the details of this strategy here. So this strategy is essentially this circle, which begins at the very top there. So at the very top, we have this stage one, or the first process here, and that is you've got to be able to earn an income. So through your human capital, you get a job, or you might start a business, and that's a different kettle of fish, but you're generating an income for yourself, and that's key step number one. So the higher the level your capacity to generate an income, the better. The lower your capacity to earn income, you just have to make more important financial decisions. From that income, we then move to the right-hand side here. There's the section there called savings. So the next step is, once you've earned an income, you've got to make sure that your regular expenses are less than your income, and the difference between what you earn and what you spend is known as savings. So that's really important. You've got to develop a savings profile in order to gain financial independence. So that's the next step, creating savings. Once you've created savings, the next step, which is on the bottom right-hand corner of this circle, is liquidity. So once you are started to accumulate savings, you need to develop a level of liquid savings that you put away to your side in the event of some shock in your personal life. So if something goes wrong in your life, you have access to liquid savings that allows you to tap to pay for your day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month expenses, because you have liquid savings available to you in the case of an emergency. Once you've accumulated a pool of liquid savings, which is the bottom right-hand corner of this circle, we then move to the bottom left-hand corner of this circle. So once you've accumulated your liquid savings, any more savings above that allows you to invest in long-term quality investments. And so you're investing those savings in good quality investments. And then we go from the bottom left-hand corner to the top left-hand corner, and that is, over a long period of time, those investments create income for you. And so once they create that income for you, we go from the left-hand side back to the top. And so the idea of financial independence is to be able to accumulate enough investments that produce enough income where you're able to say, well, I don't need to go to work anymore because my investments are creating income for me. And then that gives you the choice on whether you want to continue to work, or you can allocate your time in philanthropy or in other areas. So this is the core strategy to financial independence. And what I've got at the very bottom is a little disclaimer that says, as long as life does not throw curveballs at you. And so in a basic world, this is the core strategy, but we know that life throws curveballs at you. Perhaps you unexpectedly lose your job, which means you may need more liquid savings. Unexpectedly, you may have some health-related issue. You may need more liquid savings. So as you need more liquid savings to deal with the curveballs of life, unfortunately, that reduces your capacity to invest and reduces your capacity to produce income, investments that produce income. So that's the core concept. If we now move on to the actual steps, and we'll go through this core concept in detail. So how do we get from creating income to creating investments that create income for you? So step number one is to set financial goals. So we all are individuals. We all have unique preferences in the way we want to save money and in the way that we want to spend money. So what's really important is that everyone sets some levels of financial goals. I want to save a certain amount by a certain period of time. I want to save money to then go on holidays at some point in time. So step number one is to be able to set your financial goals, and it's recommended that you write them down and you document what these financial goals are. Step two is to be able to create an income. So you have to, one, earn a living, and then you have to ensure that your income must be greater than your expenses. And that means you have to put together a personal budget. So some people are really good at personal budgeting. Others are terrible at personal budgeting. We're all unique individuals. So you need to work out, am I really good? Am I really bad at personal budgets? But you need to be able to get your personal budget in order to ensure that your expenses are less than your income. And by going through that process in step two, you then achieve step number three. And step number three is really, really important. And that is, you are creating savings. And so as you're creating savings, you're creating wealth. That's really important, step number three. Then step number four is, once you've got these savings, you want to go through the process of saying, I need to build a pool of emergency savings that are liquid. And usually that level of savings is recommended to be at least 3 months of your expenses. So going back to step number two, by creating a budget, you can work out what is your living expenses, calculate what is 3 months of living expenses. And in step four, you want to create a pool of cash or liquid savings that you can get a good interest rate in, but also be able to tap within 24 hours. And that should be the equivalent of at least 3 months worth of expenses. I know there are other people that recommend it should be between 3 to 6 months. And so it depends on your capacity to produce income. As we go from step 4 to step 5, you need, particularly for young people, you then need to save money. And so the next step usually is to save money for investments or to save money for a home deposit. And so in addition to your liquid savings, you then have another pool of savings where you're putting money together to form a deposit for a home, whether it's a 1-bedroom apartment or 2-bedroom apartment or a small home, whatever it might be. And given the announcement of the federal government on Monday this week, life is going to become easier for young people to do that with step 5 and step 6. Step 6 is purchasing your home. So whether it's an apartment, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, or whether it's a townhouse or a house, whether you want to be close to the city or far away from the city, and obviously the restrictions due to house prices, you are purchasing a home. I'm of the believer that rent is dead money. Houses tend to grow in Australia at the rate of the inflation rate plus 2%. And so that tells us that given that structural setup in Australia, purchasing a home is a really important part of financial independence. Studies have shown that if you reach the age of 65 and you don't own your home and you are renting your home, your quality of life at retirement is lower than those that have actually owned their own home. So purchasing your home in the Australian context is really important. And so once you've gone through the process of saving money and purchasing your home, and then you're paying it off, then the step number 7 is whatever savings you have left over, you will invest in those savings in quality investments outside of super. Now, in this presentation, we are going to talk about super. Superannuation is the best long-term investment vehicle that you have available to you, but it's also important for you to save money outside of super over the long term. I'm very positive on super, but we've had governments in the last 10 years that like to tinker and play around and change rules in superannuation. And so in order to manage the decisions of future governments, it's important that you also think about investments that are outside of super, and these are long-term investments. But we'll talk about there are pluses and minuses of having investments outside of super, and we'll talk about that later today. So these are the steps from step 1 to step 7. It's exactly the same as in the previous slide. It's just written down in a format that's just easy for you to follow. Set your financial goals. Your income must be greater than your expenses. You have to create those savings. You then have to build that pool of liquid emergency savings in the event of some personal shock in your life, and you're able to then tap those emergency savings. You then need to think about saving money for a home deposit. You need to think about purchasing a home of some shape or form. Studies show that your quality of life at retirement is much higher if you are a homeowner versus if you are a renter. And then the final step is to think about investing in savings in investments that are outside your super over the long term. So the next question is, how do you actually do this, Rob? That's probably, and so let's think about those 7 steps, and let's focus on the key steps here. So the first one is you have to develop a plan, and you have to stick to that plan. So by documenting that plan, having it on pen and paper, or having it in a Word document, people record things in different ways, but you need to have it documented, and you need to look at that plan regularly. Especially if you feel that you're not able to stick to financial goals, you need to look at this plan either once a month, once a week, every day, whatever it is. You have to develop a plan and stick to it. Then you have to be able to earn an income. So you've got to be able to earn an income. It's really nice if you have full-time employment. There are trade-offs in life. You can't work 30 hours a week and become a billionaire. You're reducing your capacity to earn an income. So earning an income is really important. And the higher the income you earn, the more you're able to save today and in future years. Then you need to learn to manage a budget. So some people are really good at budgeting, some people aren't, but it's really, really important to be able to ensure that you keep your expenses below the level of income that you generate on a week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year basis. There are a lot of personal budget money planners out there. There's actually 1 million of them. There is no perfect budget planner, but our Australian corporate regulator, ASIC, the Australian Securities and Investment Commission, ASIC, they have a little website called moneysmart.gov.au. It's a fantastic free website to help you make really good personal finance decisions. And in that Money Smart website, they provide a free budget planner. There's one in Excel, if you like Microsoft Excel, and there's others online as well. And that allows you to use their free budget planner to allow you to work out how you're going with your budget, and allows you to develop your own budget. So I'm not saying that this is the best, but what I'm saying is it's one of many that are available to you. I suggest that that you experiment with different personal budget money planners. Then once you're able to produce those savings, there's an old saying in finance, and that is never stop investing. And I've sort of modified it to say never stop saving, never stop investing. Just keep buying, just keep buying, just keep investing. And so that is the key to financial independence. And so we have to get into our mindset that saving money is not a sacrifice, it's not a negative, it's the complete opposite. When you are saving money, you're creating wealth for you, for your future. And so no matter what happens in the future, as you keep saving money and you keep investing, that pool of money is available to you today and in the future in case of any unexpected circumstances that will occur. So let's now go through all the different generations and what are the things for you to think about at different levels in generations. So in the next slide, we're going to talk about if you're aged between 60 to 30, you're a Gen Z, what are the things that you should be thinking about, and how do we get to this level of financial independence when you're at this point in time in your life. So here is a checklist for Gen Zs. And you can have a look at this and you can say yes or no, I'm here, I'm not here, or these are things that I need to work on. So point number one is, do you have your financial goals listed somewhere? Is it documented? Is it in your mind? That's great, but do you have it documented somewhere? Are you earning more than you are spending? So do you have a personal budget, and are you able to stick to that budget? Are you able to avoid what's referred to as lifestyle inflation? And that is, so what is lifestyle inflation? Lifestyle inflation is, as you earn more and more money, there's a tendency to spend more and more money. And so what you want to be able to think about is, as a Gen Z, if you're able to get that pay rise or you're able to get a better job and you're earning more money, you want to be able to operate at the same level of budget as you were before, so that you're able to save more money as you're able to get a better and better job and you're able to earn more and more money. Point number 4 here is, have you paid down your credit card and have you deleted your buy now, pay later app? So credit cards are a big no-no. Buy now, pay later app, some people argue it is a credit card, others will argue that it's not. Ultimately, it doesn't matter how you define buy now, pay later. You're using someone else's money. Try to bring your credit card and your buy now, pay later balances to zero. And the best thing to do is to delete them. When you apply for a home loan, the banks will ask you, what are your credit cards? What is your buy now, pay later balance? And you're able to borrow more money for your house if you don't have a credit card and if you don't have a buy now, pay later balance. So in the lead up to obtaining a mortgage for a house, you have to get those credit cards and your buy now, pay later apps to zero, and you actually need to delete them. And that will enable you to be able to access more money for a mortgage later on in the future. Point number 5, have you accumulated your liquid emergency savings, which is the equivalent of 3 months income or 3 months of expenses? So 3 months of expenses is the minimum. In a perfect world, can you accumulate 3 months worth of income? Are you saving money for a home deposit? Or are you spending your home deposit money on other things? If you have purchased your first home and you're a Gen Z, congratulations. I think you're way ahead in this age bracket. Have you started accumulating savings for long-term investments outside of super? If you have, you're way ahead as a Gen Z. In your superannuation account, and we'll talk about super separately later today, you need to think about, is your super money allocated to a growth asset allocation or to a high growth asset allocation? So as a Gen Z, you have a lot of human capital and you have a lot of time on your side. You need to seriously think about, is my asset allocation in super in growth or high growth assets? And we'll talk more about super later on today. And for those of you in the Gen Z category, the median superannuation balance is between $4,300 and $17,800, depending on your age group. So is your super balance within that? If you don't know your super balance, you are technically not engaged with your super, and I would encourage you to get engaged to work out what is your balance and how's your balance tracking to the median in Australia. So let's go from Gen Zs to the next age cohort, which is 31 to 45-year-olds. These are the Gen Y millennials. So if you are in this age bracket, these are the things for you to think about. You need to review your financial goals. So it's really important to review your financial goals probably annually to make sure that they remain your financial goals. As you age, your financial goals may change. You should have your personal budget completely under control by this age group. If you haven't, you really need to work on that, because that is the basics here. You should already have a pool of liquid emergency savings of 3 months worth of income or expenses. Again, you need to think about avoiding lifestyle inflation. So, when you go from 31 to 45, if you are earning more money, you need to really save that additional income into your savings. You should have hopefully entered the housing market by this point in time, or you might be still saving and you're nearly at the point of a home deposit. You might also be accumulating savings in long-term investments outside of superannuation. Again, when you look at your superannuation account, you need to be thinking about, have I got my money, or do I have my assets in my super allocated to growth or high growth assets? And the median super balance for a Gen Y millennial in Australia is in the range of $34,000 to $101,000, depending on your age cohort in this age group. As we move from Gen Ys to the next age group, the Gen Xers. So if you're aged between 46 to 60 years of age, you are officially a Gen X. And if you're a Gen Xer, these are the things for you to think about. So by this age group, again, you need to review your financial goals on an annual basis. By this age, you should have a personal budget, and personal budgeting should be a non-issue to you, because you've done it for so many years already. You already should know, due to life experiences, that you should have a pool of liquid emergency savings. You probably, hopefully, have avoided lifestyle inflation, and you're able to have that under control. You should hopefully be well on your way in paying off a mortgage, or perhaps by this age group, particularly towards the end of the older age group of Gen Xers, you might be at the point where you may have paid off your mortgage. You're accumulating your savings in superannuation, and so your super fund should be growing, and you could see that growth in your super fund. You need to be thinking about maintaining your super fund in a growth or high growth asset allocation. And this is where it all gets controversial at this point in time with super, because there is the financial planning and financial advice industry that will recommend that you begin to de-risk your super account at this age group. And we're going to have a little bit of a discussion about that. And so the advice industry suggests that you should de-risk your super account at this age group, but the data and the evidence suggests that you should maintain a growth asset allocation, because most people will live to the average age of 85 to 88 years of age. And when you're a Gen Xer, you still have decades of life in front of you. For a Gen Xer in Australia, the median super balance is between $93,000 and $186,000. And as you reach the age of 60, you need to be asking the question, are you financially stable enough to retire without receiving a pension? So you can't receive a pension in Australia until the age of 67, but at the age of 60, you're able to access your superannuation. So you're at this phase where you could keep working or you could retire. Are you financially independent, or do you just need to work a few more years? Finally, the last group are the baby boomers. So if you're aged between 61 and 79 years of age, you are in the baby boomer category. So at this point in time, you have reached age 60, where you've reached preservation age. You're able to access your super. So you're asking the question, is my super big enough to be able to generate an income for myself at retirement, or do I need to work an extra few more years? There's a whole thing called transition to retirement. This is where you're able to both access your superannuation and able to work a few more hours. And there's a whole set of rules there associated with that. If you're interested in doing that, then you really need to seek financial advice to get good advice on whether that's a good idea and how that works. Our recommendation is to work for as long as possible because in Australia, we all experience longevity risk, and that is we're all living longer. And so your super account needs to fund your retirement for a lot more years now than in the past. You might reach the age of 67. You might be thinking about you're entitled to the age pension. Hopefully, you should have paid off your mortgage by now, or there might be a small balance there. And so some people are using their superannuation to then pay off the balance of their mortgage when they reach retirement. You should hopefully own some investments outside of superannuation. And this is where you need financial advice, and we can't discuss this today. But you will have when you reach retirement, you'll be thinking about transforming your superannuation account into a different product, which is called an allocated pension or an annuity, which allows you to generate an income for you at retirement. You need professional financial advice if you're reaching this point in time in your life. And the median superannuation balance for the baby boomer generation is between the range of $150,000 to $487,000. So I've talked about each of them. I've only got a couple of more minutes left. Let's talk about a really important long-term investment vehicle that you all have, and that is superannuation. So superannuation is the best long-term investment vehicle to accumulate savings for that retirement nest egg over the long term. Why? Because it's basically investments sitting in a vehicle called super, but it's taxed at a concessional rate of 15%. So because the tax rate is so low, that is the best investment vehicle to accumulate savings over the long term for retirement. And for those of you that don't know, from 1st of July this year, 12% of your salary is invested into your superannuation account. And so your money is invested in an asset portfolio, which is a combination of different types of assets, such as cash, shares or stocks, bonds, real estate, and alternative investments. So why does superannuation work? It works for the following 4 reasons. One, as we've discussed, you're only taxed at 15%, which is a lot lower than the marginal tax rate in Australia. For young people, superannuation works because you're able to accumulate your savings and you're allowing the concept of time to work for you in superannuation over 40 years. The third reason why superannuation works is that you're allowing that time to produce what's called compound returns. So as you accumulate more and more savings into super over a long period of time, your returns will compound and your savings will grow a lot faster in superannuation. And then finally, because you're putting regular savings over 40 years, there's a concept called dollar cost averaging. And superannuation is not exactly like dollar cost averaging, but it's very similar to it. And so you're allowing this dollar cost averaging concept to work inside your super fund. What are asset classes and risk and return? And I'm just mindful of time. We've only got a couple of minutes. And that is your super fund will invest your money in different types of asset classes. So different asset classes have different expected returns and different expected levels of risk. So cash has low return, low risk. Then you have bonds, which is fixed interest. Then you have real estate or property. Then you have infrastructure investments, and then you have shares and equity. So shares and equity have the highest risk, but also deliver the highest returns. So, so those of you that don't know the difference between different asset classes, because they have different risk and returns, you'll end up having different levels of wealth if you invest in different types of asset classes. So here we have a graph of 120 years of investing in Australian cash, Australian bonds, and Australian shares. And you can see there that if you invest your money in Australian shares, shares usually deliver nearly twice the return of bonds and nearly 2.5 times the return on cash. And that's why having superannuation with growth assets in shares generally produces long-term wealth over a long period of time. I'm just mindful of time, and I apologize if I'm going over here. So with your super fund, you need to ask yourself, is my money invested in a conservative asset allocation, in a balanced asset allocation, or in a growth asset allocation? And so this is really important. So a lot of people will say you need to invest in a super fund based on your risk profile. And so if you're a conservative investor, a conservative super fund works for you. If you like risk, a growth super fund works for you as well. But the evidence shows that you need to have as much exposure to growth as possible. The younger you are, the better. This is an example of the assets that are invested in different super funds. I won't mention the name of this super fund, but it just gives you an example that when you invest your money in a conservative super fund, the return is basically CPI plus 1%. CPI is the inflation rate plus 1%. And you can see a lot of that money is invested in cash and bonds. On the opposite side, in the high growth asset allocation, the target return is inflation plus 4%. And you can see that a lot of the asset allocation is in Australian shares and global shares. And while the balanced fund is somewhere in the middle. So have a look at your super. So these are the superannuation balances in Australia. And you need to think about where you sit. And sort of I've disclosed to you the median superannuation balances there in the different cohorts. If you want to evaluate your super fund, the Australian Tax Office has got a website where you can evaluate your super fund. You can look at your super fund. There's a comparison tool there and allows you to work out, are you in a good super fund or otherwise? With the superannuation, regardless of your age, these are the things for you to think about. If you are a sole trader, are you making regular contributions into your super fund, or are you skipping this? So most tradies that I've met tend to work on a contract basis. They have to manage their own super fund, and they're earning a living, but they're not actually contributing to their own super fund. And if you're doing that, you're actually hurting yourself because you're accumulating savings, but you're not obtaining that low tax rate of 15%. Point number 2, is your employer making contributions into your super fund, or is there super weight theft happening to you? So there have been instances where some companies are not making your super contributions into your super fund. So my recommendation is check regularly with your employer to make sure that contributions are landing into your super fund, to make sure that your employer is doing the right thing and that there's no super wage theft happening to you. So check your super fund contributions regularly, and you do that by having a look at your superannuation statement. Point number 3, is your super invested in growth, balance, or conservative options? When you're dealing with financial advisors, they will say that the answer is based on your risk profile, and that is the correct way to give you financial advice. But the data and the evidence and the research shows that the more you're allocated to growth assets in super, the better you're off at the point of retirement and beyond retirement. So is your current asset allocation appropriate? So have a look at your super, have a look at your asset allocation and review that. What is the long-term performance of your super fund compared to its peers? Use that ATO website to help you get that answer. And what are the management fees of your super fund compared to your peers? Have a look at that ATO website, and that's able to help you as well. So these are the references that I've used for this presentation. We've covered a lot today, and we certainly have not covered everything. And I apologize if we haven't covered everything. I've slightly run out of time. I sincerely apologize. And what I'll do now is I'll hit escape and we'll go to Q&A. So let me hit escape there. I will.
So good. Thanks, Rob. No, that was excellent. And we've got quite a few questions coming through. I'm just
Wonderful.
going to group a couple there while you exit share screen. There's a few questions around the house ownership and the size of the first property, and if people due to their visas can't buy, how can they best rent? Yeah, there's a lot of questions, so maybe you could just talk through a bit more around why you see home ownership is so important, the size of the property, and what to do if you can't get into the market at the moment.
There's a lot of questions there, Nicole. So let's go through them one at a time. Look, if you're an Australian citizen, you're entitled to buy a property in Australia. If you're not an Australian citizen, I really can't give you advice other than you need to rent. I don't know what the terms and conditions are to be able to purchase a property if you are an overseas student. So I really can't answer that question. I think the best solution at that point in time is you need to save. And so as you go through that journey of being an international student, learn what are the terms and conditions to purchase property in Australia. And through that period of time, you should be saving as much as you can. I think there was another question on the size of the property. Believe it or not, the size of the property, there's two interactions here to think about. The bigger the property, the better the asset. So, how do you put it? A lot of people ask the question, should you buy a house? Should you buy an apartment? At the end of the day, everything goes up over a long period of time. And so the question today isn't so much I should buy a house or I should buy an apartment. We're living in a more restricted environment for first home buyers, and that is what is the income that you're earning, and that income that you earn will determine the size of your mortgage that banks will lend you money. And so that repayment schedule, what banks will lend money to you, that will actually limit your capacity in terms of the mortgage that you'll be able to obtain from a bank. And that limit will then give you the restricted budget when buying a home. And so they might say, well, you might have saved $100,000 and they're able to lend you $600,000, and you're saying, okay, my budget is $700,000. So you're going into the market knowing that you can only buy something up to $700,000. Now, you can buy one-bedroom apartments for $700,000. You can buy two-bedroom apartments for $700,000. You can buy real estate in Kilcoy for less than $700,000. So I hope that answers your question.
Awesome, thank you. We've got lots and lots of questions coming through. I'm just going to try to scroll back down to the bottom of them. One question we can do quite quickly is the difference between a financial advisor and a financial planner.
In my world, they're both the same. So they would be licensed individuals. And so if you want to make important financial decisions, I think you need to go to a reputable firm and ask for financial advice. And then depending on what you're asking, they will appoint either a financial planner or advisor to you. And so there's a whole legal framework there of are you trying to receive general advice? Or are you trying to receive specific advice? And so different people will be licensed to provide general advice, and others will be licensed to provide specific advice. And that whole process is going through, it's in a state of flux at the moment, and that's actually changing as we speak. So my suggestion to you is you seek professional advice, talk to different reputable firms, ask them what you're trying to seek, and then they will provide the solutions that they think is appropriate for you.
Thank you. And the next question is, how can I best use AI to help me with my financial planning?
That's a fantastic question. How to use AI. My suggestion to you is to not use AI. For those of you that don't know, if you use AI, think about what you're really knowledgeable with, and go to AI and ask them some really specific questions about what you are an expert in. And what you'll find is AI is accurate about 80 to 90% of the time. And so for 10 to 20% of the time, it will give you answers that are actually factually wrong. And so when it comes to your financial life, when it comes to seeking financial advice, if you're asking financial advice from AI, we know that 80% of what it's going to tell you is correct, and 10 to 20% of what it's going to tell you is incorrect. So are you going to bet your financial life on a robot that could be 10 to 20% incorrect? And so I would take a more prudent approach, and I would not use AI. I would try to read books from financial advisors in Australia. I would try to seek as much information from someone that's a licensed financial planner, and literally obtain as much information from them rather than using artificial intelligence. And so I think we've seen enough examples of this, both globally in Australia and also within Griffith University, that AI is helpful if you already know the knowledge. If you don't have the knowledge, there's a risk there that you can make incorrect financial decisions.
Right, thank you. There's a question around the proposed superannuation tax changes and the amount of $3 million. And the question is, does it apply on a per person basis, and what happens with an self-managed super fund in that context?
So that's a really complicated question. And so I really can't give you an answer. You need to seek professional financial advice to obtain the answer to that question. But for a general audience, what's happened is the Albanese government has made a decision that if you have a superannuation balance of $3 million, you should be taxed based on unrealized capital gains at a rate of 30%. And so instead of receiving that concessional tax rate of 15%, anything above $3 million is going to be taxed at 30%, which is very similar to the Australian corporate tax rate. And so there's a big controversy there. I can't provide an answer to that question because I'd be providing specific financial advice. And so an answer is you need to talk to your accountant, or you need to talk to a licensed financial advisor to seek the advice on that, and to seek the best solution that works for you.
Thank you. There's a question, another question on super around whether you should have multiple super funds, being mindful of the recent news with some funds collapsing and people using money. And there's just a side question around how fees work across multiple funds if you hold money.
It's a great question. So there's two parts there. Part one is multiple super funds, and the second one is fees. It is recommended that you have one super fund so that you pay one set of fees. If you have two super funds, you're paying two sets of fees. So depending on the balance of your super accounts, your fees could reflect a high proportion of your balance. So by consolidating your super funds into one super fund, you'll only pay one set of fees. So that is the recommended suggestion for everyone. The next question is super funds going broke or going bust. There is no super funds that have gone broke, but there is controversy here on a particular fund called Guardian, and so they went broke, and access to that fund was done through a platform, and some people either made direct investments into that, or some people with superannuation had made investments into that investment, and that investment had collapsed. So all I can say is you really need to do your homework. You need to invest in reputable investment managers, and you need to seek professional financial advice if you're in that situation.
Thank you. There's a couple of questions around seeking your recommendations on any websites, apps, or books for further learning. If there's any that you immediately come to mind that you could share.
Absolutely. The number one, number two sites, and people are going to hate me when I tell them this, but the Australian Taxation Office, the ATO. It has some good sites and some good information there, particularly on superannuation. The other one is the ASIC website, asic.gov.au. In Google, do a search for Money Smart. So the Money Smart website is a wonderful website. It's free. It's available from ASIC. And there is a million topics there on finance. And I think that's a really, really good starting point. I would trust ASIC a lot more than any finfluencers that you see on YouTube or Instagram.
Okay, great. Thank you. There was a question, and I'm just trying to scroll back down to find it, but it was around using, there's two similar questions, one around using offset accounts, and then also how far down you should pay your mortgage before you start to look to invest. If you've got something that was 70% paid off, is that a good time to then start investing?
It's a great question. And I'm going to use the economist hand here. You're going to get different answers from different people. So the general consensus is if you're paying a high interest rate, you're better off paying off the mortgage to as low as possible. There is the general consensus to never pay it off and to always have a balance of $100 or $1,000 there. And so the rationale there is once you pay off a mortgage and you need to access money quickly, then you have to apply for a loan from a bank. But if you can pay down your mortgage to $1,000 balance or $100 balance, the mortgage remains open. And in the event of an emergency, it's essentially a line of credit where you can tap and obtain equity from that mortgage in the case of some family emergency in the future. So back to the question, how much should you pay down before you invest? In a world of low interest rates, you sort of pay down less and you invest more. But in the world of high interest rates that we are at the moment, you should be paying down that mortgage a lot quicker and try to get that under control as quickly as you can before investing. So I hope that makes sense. And you are going to get different types of advice or suggestions depending on who you talk to.
Thank you. There was a couple of questions too around recommendations for accountants and financial planners. Did the government websites you mentioned, do they provide tips or framework of how you can assess the quality of professionals?
Yeah, there are websites that allows you to show you the register of financial planners. In terms of accountants, there should be a list of CPAs, chartered practicing accountants, or CAs, chartered accountants. And so my advice is seek advice from an accountant or financial advisor or planner. Some people have accountants and they don't have financial planners. Others have financial planners and they don't have accountants. Some have the combination of both. So I think the first step is to have meetings with different people, double check their qualifications, make sure that they are licensed, and then go from there.
All right, thanks, Rob. There's still a lot of questions in there, and I'm sorry, everyone, we're not going to get to them today. I've just got a few wrap-up messages to share with everyone. And firstly, Rob, thank you so much for your time today. The insights and interactions have been really strong and great to see that there's that level of interest and the ability for Griffith alumni to hear from someone with your level of expertise. So thank you for being so generous and clear in your guidance that you've given everyone today. I've got a couple of key dates for everyone just to quickly share. So we've got registrations are closing for Lead with Impact on the 3rd of September. So Lead with Impact is Griffith University's flagship annual leadership program, and it's created exclusively and free for Griffith alumni to develop your leadership potential and drive meaningful change in your workplaces. We'll post these links in the chat for you to see them. Our next webinar will be on the 8th of October, and that's all around career paths if you're wanting to progress, pivot, or build a portfolio career. And then we've got our 50th Years of Griffith event is taking place on Sunday, the 26th of October, and we would love as many alumni to be there. We've already got over 800 registrations for that event, so it's going to be a fantastic day to come back to where it all began for Griffith and join in. There'll be food trucks, live performances, tours. Yeah, we'd love to see you all there. And just also one thing we didn't talk about in detail today, but just in the newsletter, alumni newsletter that went out today, there is an exclusive offer for alumni to access a free will. So that offer's available for 2 weeks. So that is, I think, something important to consider as well with your financial planning. That's a benefit that's available there for Griffith alumni as well. So Rob, did you have anything in closing remarks to say? And then I'm just going to throw to a quick video for everyone.
I just wanted to say thanks everyone for your time. I hope I've added some value to you, and I wish you all the best with your financial future. Thank you so much.